Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and today, in celebration of Indie RPG Month, I want to introduce you to a little game you probably have never heard of. This is my look at Streamlined Superheroes by John Fredericks of Sharp Mountain Games. Let's roll it. Full disclosure, John Fredericks is a friend of mine who actually ran this system at EcclesiaCon 25 back in March, and he was also a EcclesiaCon 2025 sponsor. He also sent me a copy of Streamlined Superheroes for free to see what I thought of it, but after reading the book, I went out and purchased a copy for myself because it was fun. I got the paid promotion checkbox marked on this video since he did give me the review copy, but I'm under no obligation to say nice things about the game, nor did he pay me for my thoughts. This is my free and fair review, as always. I also want to shout out everyone who has liked, commented, and subscribed to DM Tales because it helps with the algorithm a lot. And if you consider doing those things for this video, I would be most grateful. Also, a special shout out to my coffee contributors who help keep this channel going out of the kindness of their hearts. If you'd like to join the channel, the link is right over there. Also, if you're looking for some cool stuff to wear, check out my merch store for t-shirts and hoodies, including this design with the DM Tales logo and channel motto proudly displayed. With all that out of the way, let's get to the review. The core mechanic for Streamlined Superheroes is streamlined. For checks, players roll a d20 and add their appropriate attribute score. If the result is 10 or greater, that check is successful. On a successful check, an effect die is rolled. This will reduce the target's hit points if it's an attack, or hurdle points if the attempt is made against an obstacle, such as a trap or a doomsday device that's begun a countdown. When the target hits 0, it is defeated. Both checks and effect dice can be rolled with both advantage and disadvantage. 2 of the same dice are rolled, and either the higher or lower number is taken, depending on which is being applied. For opposed checks, both parties roll, and if only one side is successful, that party wins the check. If both parties succeed, they roll an appropriate effect dice to see who wins the opposed check. And that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. Characters have 4 attributes: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and charisma. Players assign an array to these attributes during the character creation process: 3, 2, 1, and 0. Characters also have a combination of 4 powers or skill chosen by the player, to which an array of die types is assigned: a d12, a d10, a d8, and a d6. Now, while it's common for characters to have 3 powers and 1 skill, which comes from their regular life, there's no mechanical difference between the two. A hero may be all skill-based and be able to play with other characters in the game without any problems. Characters begin play with 20 hit points, though if they take a body armor power or body armor equipment, the maximum number of whatever die type is assigned is added to their hit point total. A player who takes a D10 body armor power, for example, begins play with 30 hit points. Both skills and powers are mostly, with the exception of body armor and anything listed that is equipment, narrative only. If the character has a concept in mind and wants to change the narrative description for a power, there really is no problem. When that power is activated, the assigned die is rolled, just as with any other power or skill. Only the in-game description changes. I love games like that. If a player wants their character to have a weakness, like being afraid of the color yellow, then the character will get an additional D6 power or skill to use. Powers or skill that are based on gear are considered a weakness because those tools can be lost, stolen, or broken. So it buffs the player a little bit, but puts them at risk as well. If a character ever wants to attempt something for which that character is not trained, they may do so, but their effect die for it is going to be a D4. Now, characters advance by GM discretion, usually after a significant adventure. Each time they do so, they may raise the amount of one attribute to a maximum of 8, or they can increase one of their effect dice by 1 type, capping out at a D12. Unless surprised, which is determined by GM discretion, the default initiative in the game is for the player's side to go first, and then from there, combat alternates between 1 NPC and 1 PC until everyone has had a chance to go, and then the round starts over. Inflicting blows on villains and dealing with hurdles uses the core mechanic as described earlier. But in sticky situations, another hero may attempt to help a character with their action. The helping hero makes an appropriate check called for by the GM, and if they succeed, the hero being helped gets advantage on both their attack check and their effect dice. Even if the helping hero fails their check, however, the attacking hero is still granted advantage on their attack, so there's always a reason to help out another person in the party. Characters who become ensnared by something need to inflict damage on the ensnaring force in order to break free. This is equal to the effect die's value when the snare was first unleashed upon them. Very, very simple. Streamlined Superheroes is designed to appear as though it was a relic from the 80s, with 2 columns of full justified text and a single font for the entire book, except for the sample heroes' names, that is. It's all no frills, and it works. The body and heading fonts are an easy-to-read serif font, callouts sport a simple gray background, headings are a larger and heavier version of the body font, and there are 3 levels in the book. The footer contains nothing but the page number, there's nothing in the header. Artwork is not plentiful, but what does exist is nice. It's either all John Frederick's own art or some public domain comic pieces from bygone eras, so it all meshes really well. It doesn't try to break new ground, it just works, and that's not always a bad thing. Hey, several days later, Wes here with some updates. Oddly, I am wearing the same shirt as I was in my previous recording of this, but it has been laundered, don't worry. But here's the thing. Streamlined Superheroes was so easy, I decided to run a game of it this past Thursday, just a couple days after reading the book for the first time, because I was wiped and I couldn't even think of preparing for my regular Dragonbane session. How did it play? Pretty good. Character creation was as fast as I expected. The players assigned their attributes and they picked their skills and powers without a problem. And they thought up how their characters acted as well as their superhero names as we played the game. It wasn't a problem at all. Once players got used to the concept of effect dice, which took all of a couple of minutes, they were narrating their actions with a lot of fun flair. And here's a few examples. 2 heroes teamed up to freeze a couple of bank robbers to the spot. One hero magicked some restraints against another one of the bank robbers, and that was pretty fun. One of those ice-powered heroes then decided to get into melee combat with one of the villains and described creating ice cube boxing gloves to punch that villain out. That was awesome. Another grabbed a robber and teleported him out to the police before teleporting back into the bank. We also determined that his quantum-based powers, which had an energy beam, shunted any target that hit 0 HP to another reality for a bit. Then they would come back disoriented and they would just tie him up. Because one of the players purchased a Mazda the day of our game, the group also decided that a Mazda CX was their superhero team's vehicle of choice. And this is because they were sponsored by a local dealership. And their tank always rode in the car with his head sticking out of the sunroof. And a picture of that image was on billboards all over Sharp Mountain City. Pretty cool. I would definitely play this game again, but there are a couple of things I'd change. First is the ensnaring rule, which allows for the target to make a dexterity check in order to avoid being ensnared at all. This made it feel like it was too much of a toss-up to try ensnaring something, and the players eventually decided to punch things because that worked better. Also, I advised them to do this because I didn't want to TPK the party in the first scene. I brought this whole concept up to John, and he said this was a rule that he had tried many different variations of, and actually he is going to try to run it without that dexterity check to see how it works. In his own words, it is, after all, supposed to be streamlined superheroes. And here's the thing, because the ensnarement roll creates hurdle points that people need to break through in order to get out of the ensnarement, I think that's a pretty good idea. The second thing I'd change is initiative. The default, if there is no surprise that is for the players to go first and then to alternate one after another with the villains. That is simple, but it gets a little bit ungainly. I ran with 6 players, and when the number of adversaries matched the number of players plus an extra villain tossed in, it just got to be a little bit too much to keep track of. What I ended up doing, by instinct really, was grouping all the adversaries who were both in the same space and the same type into the same initiative. I just felt that worked a little bit better. I will say that having an effect die to roll an entanglement's hurdle points is just wonderful. 2 of my players successfully grappled some guards, but one of them only rolled a 1 for their effect. So I described him as having a tenuous grasp on their target. And this in turn brought another hero over to assist before they could break free. It was really, really cool. And then when I actually had my adversaries on a little sheet and I was jotting down who was what, anybody who got entangled, I just put 1 HP, 1 hurdle point, or 2 HP, 2 hurdle points next to their name, and that's what they had to get through in order to act outside of the entanglement again. It's really easy. I gotta say, I like this game, and it may be the best pick up and go superhero TTRPG that I have seen yet. Now, I think Sentinel Comics RPG edges it out some for me, just a little bit above. I like the overcome action and the scene tracker are things that I really enjoy, but it's not by that much at all. This is a game I'll play again at the drop of a hat. So with all that said, let's get back to my review. Calling this 17-page book no frills is an understatement. Streamlined Superheroes is a game which can be taught in minutes, the character creation process is fast and flexible, and the game is designed to move. Folks may scoff at its lightweight form, but Streamlined Superheroes feels very comic bookish, and that's about as high praise as I can give a superhero game. If you want to pick up Streamlined Superheroes from DriveThruRPG, you can get it for a whopping $2.99. Do not be put off by its inexpensive price. This is a quality piece of work and it's well worth picking up. Rust and Redemption is coming. I'm hoping to make that a vacation video, but we'll see how that works out. After that, I'm hoping my party will have encountered my unnamed Numenera book and then get into Dreams and Machines after that. I'm also reading The Elusive Shift at present, and I hope to bring a review of that book to this channel at some point in July. And then I've got my shelf of unread books to get to, and I'm so excited to do all of it. Until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.